The second thing is that they don't put down two books. They don't say, I would be impressed if these Christianities that are growing in the Southern Hemisphere would say, okay, read this book and read this book, critically evaluate it, get back to me. But they don't do that. The inner witness of the Holy Spirit, why haven't I experienced that? Why is he doing such a poor job of it? And the U2 fallacy, I like this one. They say, well, you know what? If this is the case, then maybe you were born into atheism, or maybe since you're not as rational as you think you are, therefore you should doubt skepticism. I think I'll say more about that in a minute, but that doesn't fly. If we are not rational human beings, then the only conclusion that we should all come to is skepticism. That's it. If we're not rational beings, entirely rational beings, then we should doubt what we were raised to believe. That's all there is to all of us. And that's basically what it means to be a skeptic. And because of these things, believers usually cannot be reasoned out of their faith because they were never reasoned into it in the first place. They were acculturated to believe. They have a vested interest in their belief. With cognitive dissonance, they prefer the delusion. And for me, it took a personal crisis to believe. William Lane Craig, he says it's possible that God has so providentially ordered the world that those who fail to hear the gospel and be saved would not have freely responded affirmatively to it, even if they had heard it. A couple things about this. Possible. Christians, I swear, they will not see that their faith is improbable until you show that their faith is impossible. So long as Bill Craig can say it's still possible for God to know what he's doing, it means he's asking for an unjustifiable standard. Alvin Plantinga had written something on the problem of evil, and he said it's still possible this and it's still possible that to defeat the logical problem of evil. It seems like that's what they do all too often. But if God had that foreknowledge, if God had that kind of foreknowledge to know who would hear and be saved and who wouldn't, then he should have known which ones would have been saved, and never having created the ones who would be damned. If he had that kind of foreknowledge, we would say, let's see, rather than create them in separate parts of the world, I'm just going to not create them at all. I mean, the damned, the ones that he could foreknow would not accept and be saved, and the big hotel hell would never have one occupant. Christian options object to the test. That's their first knee-jerk reaction. And then when I talk to them and argue with them, then first, well, they do it by the test is faulty or the test is unfair. And then finally, when they do see that it's not faulty, it's not unfair, then they say, okay, well, I'll subject my faith to the test, and it passes. Is the test faulty? What time is it, Mike? Is this going tomorrow? Okay. I always get worried when people leave and come back, but I just realized you guys had all kinds of pop over there. So. They would claim that, you know what, if no religion can pass the test, then the test is faulty. I mean, surely you've got to find a religion that will pass the test, otherwise you've constructed a test that no religion can pass. If that's the case, there's something wrong with that. Well, my claim is that if no religion can pass the test, it's not the fault of the test. I think it's a fair test. I think it's a reasonable test. It's a test that actually I argue that Christianity should pass. Should have been made to pass. It's the fault of religion. Is it faulty? Skepticism is self-defeating, they'll argue. Well, you know what? How can I be skeptical of skepticism? Skepticism is a filter that we use to filter out good ideas from bad. That can't be self-defeating to say I'm skeptical or I doubt. Take what? You want me to take away that filter? You want me just to open my mind to any idea? Well, I've got a piece of property in Alaska for you. And it only costs a couple grand. You can have it for a couple grand. No, skepticism is something we all do. We all especially do it with those faiths that we reject. And all I'm asking is no double standards. Is the test faulty? It asks more than a mere mortal can be expected to do. Well, I'm only asking people to examine their religious faith, not all their beliefs. People's religious faiths are so intertwined with their entire worldview that they think I'm asking them to give up all their beliefs. Give them all up. But that's not the case. When I became an atheist, I'm still a Westerner. I still have a Western mindset. You know, I still believe in marriage. You know, I mean, I still believe in love. I mean, I have the same language. You know, I still speak English. I have not given up all of my other beliefs. I mean, I still have much of my same morals. I just don't tie it as much. I don't tie at all, I guess, you know, when it comes to church. So no, and besides, there are lots of people who have given up their faith, and they still live normal, decent lives. So it's only asking you to examine your religious faith and separating that from your worldview. That is your total package of beliefs you have. And your total worldview is everything you think about the world. You know, politics, you know, what you think about race issues, what you think about, you know, medical issues. I mean, all sorts of things. You know, if you're a white male, you have different, you know, views, and if you're a black female, you see, you don't give up those things. You just don't give up those things. They're still the same. You just give up your religious beliefs. It's not asking anything more than any mere mortal can do, and people have lived to do that. Then I just simply say Christianity should have been made to pass the test, and here's why. If Christianity cannot pass the outsider test of faith, then how does God expect people to convert from other cultures to Christianity? If Christianity can't pass the outsider test for faith, being an outsider is someone who is not an insider, not born an insider, someone who was born in, say, a different culture. If Christianity cannot pass the outsider test for faith, then there's a lot of people condemned to hell simply by virtue of the fact that they were born in a different place. And so, having that, they say, you know what, maybe it's not faulty, or maybe it's unfair. Now let's apply it to morality. Otherwise, the test unfairly targets religious faith for criticism. Well, I think there's a lot of moralities that are tied to religious faiths. I think that a lot of people, when they give up their evangelical right-wing religious beliefs, also in turn give up their evangelical right-wing political beliefs, because some of those beliefs go hand in hand. So yes, to subject those sorts of things, those moralities to the same test of skepticism. I mean, after all, why not? But the thing about that morality that's different than religion is that we don't need religion, we need morality. We need a shared consensus of how to behave. So we have to choose. We have to make decisions on the kind of morality that we should live by, whereas we don't need religion. So they're not parity. There's no parity there. Then the test should be equally applied to the atheist. Otherwise, the test unfairly targets religious faith for criticism. The atheist is basically a skeptic who doesn't believe in supernatural beings and forces. And that being the case, I've already subjected my position to the outsider test of faith. That's why I'm an atheist. If Christians assert their faith passes the test, I don't think they understand it. I think they're fooling themselves. And then at least we agree that they should. Now the last point. Once a Christian says that, yeah, okay, the outsider test for faith is not faulty and it's not unfair, then at least at that point we have a place to debate. Before then, sometimes we're just like talking past one another. Because now at least we've agreed on who has the burden of proof. At that point, now we've agreed on who has the burden of proof. Once a Christian says, okay, it's not faulty, it's not unfair, at that point, they have adopted the burden of proof because they now understand that it is an extraordinary claim that should be defended. And I claim that with the outsider test, the default position is agnosticism, which is a skepticism toward everything. Agnosticism led me to the denial of all supernatural beings and forces. My claim is that no so-called revealed religion passes the test. You know, in most of those religions, you know, somebody whispered in your ear anyway. You know, Moses came down from the mountain with, special revelation that God wrote on a stone. Abraham claims God spoke to him, sacrifice Isaac. Balaam said his ass spoke. I mean, where's the public announcement of these sorts of things? You don't see it too often at all. And I don't think religion itself can probably survive. But, if there is a religion that does survive from the test, then it would be a nebulous God of the philosophers kind of religion, which can be safely ignored. As having no relevance for one's life. The whole reason most Christians object to taking the test is because they intuitively know their faith will not pass it. And so, let me enjoin upon you to press the test as often as possible. If you have more questions, I've written about it in both of the books. If this gives you an introduction to it, that's all you need, then ask them to examine their own faith with the same skepticism they use when they examine the faiths of others. And by that, I mean, they don't like David Hume, and his skeptical questions about miracles. But Christians will use the same evidentiary standards that David Hume wrote about when it comes to Catholic. Evangelicals use the same standards when it comes to Catholic claims on miracles. Catholics will use the same David Hume against Islam, and other faith healers and what have you. I mean, they already use David Hume's evidential standards. The wise man should doubt, until it's overwhelming otherwise. And so it seems like to me that that's the way they approach other religions. So use that same standard on yourself. And I don't think that any religion can pass that test. Are we done? All right, I can take questions all night. All right, thank you. Yeah, there's somebody left. No, some of them, whenever I do a lecture and you leave, you get talked about. So, the drinks got to them, and they were just here for the pizza. My professor, James Strauss, would say, what you win the middle, you win the two. Thanks for showing. Do you have any questions? Sure.
I've debated a lot of Christians, and there's one point that I've gotten some of them to that you don't address. And it is,
I didn't address a lot of things.
It's a basic premise that the entire thing seems to be based on, and that's the reason to hold the belief is because it's true. What if someone rejects that premise and says truth and correctness is not why they choose to hold the beliefs which they choose to believe? Insert whatever other motivation you might want, be it societal ease, makes them feel happy inside, or whatever other motive you might want. But how do you answer someone who rejects correctness as a reason to hold the belief?
You have just described him to lose a person.
Yes. But someone who's acknowledging that and okay with it.
Well, I'd probably, let me say something and then I'll try to seriously address it. But my professor, James Strauss, he would say, well, some people, all you can do is come up to bars and pray in Braille. Sorry, voice crack. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, some people can't be reached. I mean, well, most people. And, it makes me feel good, and that's all I need. Sometimes you just people in their delusion. Leave them alone. Go find someone who is interested in truth. I mean, I know people like that. I leave them alone. I have friends and relatives that I don't argue with. My son. On Father's Day, my son gave me a Bible. I raised him to believe. And